You're at a dinner party. Around you, people are engaged in what seems like effortless conversation, talking about their jobs, their relationships, their weekend plans. They're laughing, they're connecting. And you're sitting there feeling like you're watching a play you were never taught the lines for. It's not social anxiety. You can talk when you need to. It's something else. It's the overwhelming sense that this kind of interaction, this constant need for company, for small talk, for connection, is exhausting. And worse, it feels meaningless. Maybe you've been called antisocial. Maybe people say you're too picky about friends. Maybe they've told you that you need to put yourself out there more. And maybe you've wondered if something is wrong with you. Here's the truth they won't tell you. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just intelligent enough to see what most people can't, that most human connection is performance, most friendship is a transaction, and most social interaction is a waste of the limited time you have on this planet. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this viscerally. While other philosophers celebrated human sociability and community, he looked at friendship and saw something darker, a coping mechanism for people who can't stand to be alone with their own thoughts. And he noticed that the most intelligent people, the ones capable of deep thinking, not only prefer solitude, but require it. This isn't about being a misanthrope. This isn't about hating people. This is about understanding why depth of mind and breadth of connection are inversely related, and why choosing solitude over shallow friendship is a mark of intelligence, not dysfunction. Think about your last conversation with someone you'd call a friend. What did you talk about? Their problems at work? The latest drama in their relationship? Weekend plans? TV shows? Now think about the last time you had a conversation that actually engaged your mind, where you discussed ideas that mattered, where you explored concepts that challenged your thinking, where you felt intellectually stimulated rather than socially drained. How long ago was that? Months? Years? Never? This is the quality problem. Most people operate on a conversational level that intelligent people find unbearably shallow. It's not that you're a snob. It's that there's a fundamental mismatch between what your mind needs and what most social interaction provides. Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free." He wasn't advocating for hermitage. He was identifying a truth. Most social interaction requires you to suppress who you actually are. You have to dial down your vocabulary. You have to pretend to care about things that bore you. You have to moderate your thoughts to avoid making people uncomfortable. When you're alone, you don't have to perform. You can read what you want, think what you want, explore ideas as deeply as you want without someone changing the subject back to their gym routine. Solitude isn't isolation. It's liberation from the constant compromise that social interaction demands. Most people can't tolerate this. They need constant external stimulation because their internal world is empty. They're terrified of silence because silence reveals the absence of substantial thought. They collect friends like trophies because they define their worth through social validation. But you are different. Your mind generates its own content. You can spend hours thinking about a single idea. You don't need other people to validate your existence because your intellectual life provides something most people never experience: genuine self-sufficiency. This is why most friendship feels like a burden to you, not because you hate people, but because the quality of interaction most people offer doesn't justify the energy expenditure. And you are intelligent enough to recognize that truth, even when everyone around you insists you're wrong.
Here's a question nobody wants to answer honestly. What percentage of people do you genuinely respect intellectually? Not like, not enjoy spending time with, intellectually respect. People whose thinking challenges yours. People who can grasp complex ideas without you having to simplify them. People who read, who think critically, who question assumptions. If you're being honest, the number is small, very small. Maybe 5%, maybe 1%. Maybe you can count them on one hand. This is the Rarity Principle. The more intelligent you are, the fewer peers you have. Intelligence follows a distribution curve, and the further right you fall on that curve, the lonelier the landscape becomes. Schopenhauer observed, "Solitude will be welcomed or endured or avoided according as a man's personal value is large or small, the wretch feeling when he is alone the whole misery of his existence." Translation: people who can't stand to be alone are people whose internal life is worthless. They need others because they have nothing of value inside themselves. But people of substance, people with rich inner worlds, don't just tolerate solitude, they prefer it. Think about the Dunning-Kruger effect. The least competent people are the most confident. Why? Because they lack the intelligence to recognize their own limitations. They think their shallow observations are profound insights. They think their surface-level understanding equals mastery. And these people, the confident incompetents, are everywhere. They're the majority, which means if you're looking for genuine intellectual companionship, you're searching for needles in a haystack, and the search is exhausting. So you have two choices. Spend enormous amounts of energy trying to find the rare few who match your intellectual level, or accept that solitude is more fulfilling than the company of people who don't challenge you. Most intelligent people eventually choose solitude, not out of bitterness, out of mathematics. The probability of finding someone worth spending time with is low. The cost of pretending to enjoy mediocre company is high. The value of protecting your mental energy is invaluable. This is why you prefer staying home with a book over going to parties, not because you're broken, because you've done the cost-benefit analysis, and the numbers don't work out. Your time is finite, your energy is limited, and most people simply aren't worth the investment.
You know what's exhausting about most social interaction? The constant performance, the mask you have to wear, the version of yourself you have to present to be socially acceptable. Maybe you've learned to laugh at jokes you don't find funny. Maybe you've learned to nod along when people talk about reality TV or sports or gossip you couldn't care less about. Maybe you've learned to hide your actual interests because mentioning them makes people uncomfortable. This isn't authentic connection. This is social theater. And you're intelligent enough to recognize that you're performing, which makes the entire experience doubly alienating. You're lonely in the company of others because the person they're interacting with isn't actually you. Schopenhauer wrote, "Ordinary people merely think how they shall spend their time. A man of talent tries to use it. Every minute you spend performing normalcy is a minute stolen from your actual intellectual life. Every conversation where you suppress your real thoughts to avoid seeming too intense or too serious is time wasted. Every friendship built on presenting a false version of yourself is fundamentally hollow." And the worst part? People demand this performance. They don't want depth, they want comfort. They don't want to be challenged, they want to be validated. They don't want real conversation, they want pleasant noise that makes them feel less alone without requiring them to actually think. So you face a choice: perform and be accepted, or be authentic and be isolated. Most intelligent people try the first option for years, pretending to be simpler than they are, dumbing down their language, feigning interest in trivia. But eventually, the cost becomes unbearable. The cognitive dissonance of constantly censoring yourself, the exhaustion of code switching between who you are and who others need you to be, the soul-crushing realization that even your friends don't actually know you. That's when you choose solitude, not as a failure of social skills, but as a refusal to keep performing. Because being alone and authentic is better than being surrounded by people who only like the fake version of you. At least in solitude, you're genuinely yourself. Let's talk about energy. Not the abstract concept, the actual finite resource you have each day. The mental and emotional capacity to engage with the world. Introverts have understood this for years. Social interaction depletes energy. But there's something most people miss. It's not all social interaction that's draining. It's shallow social interaction. It's performance. It's the cognitive load of constant translation and suppression. Think about it. When you have a genuinely good conversation, rare as it is, with someone who actually understands you, you don't feel drained. You feel energized. The exchange of ideas creates energy rather than consuming it. But when you spend 2 hours at a social gathering making small talk, pretending to care about topics that bore you, you leave feeling like you've run a marathon. Your energy is gone, your mind is tired, and you got nothing valuable in return. Schopenhauer understood this. A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants. Applied here, you can force yourself to socialize, but you can't force yourself to enjoy it when it's intellectually empty. You can't will yourself to feel energized by conversations that don't stimulate your mind. You can't make mediocre company feel valuable through sheer effort. So you start doing the math. You have maybe 3 or 4 hours of good mental energy each day after work or obligations. Do you spend that energy on social performance that leaves you drained? Or do you spend it on reading, thinking, creating, activities that actually feed your mind? Most intelligent people choose the latter, not because they're antisocial, but because they've learned to protect their most valuable resource, cognitive energy. They've recognized that their capacity for deep thought is finite and precious, and wasting it on shallow socializing is a form of self-betrayal. This is why you cancel plans, why you decline invitations, why you prefer staying home, not because you don't value people, but because you value your mental energy more than you value the performance of normalcy. And you're intelligent enough to make that choice consciously, even when society tells you you're wrong.
Here's what confuses people. They assume that if you prefer solitude, you must be lonely. They think rejecting shallow friendship means rejecting all human connection. They believe that choosing to be alone is the same as being unable to connect. They're wrong. Intelligent people don't reject connection, they just have different standards. They're not antisocial, they're selectively social. They don't hate friendship, they hate pretending. So what do intelligent people do instead of collecting acquaintances and maintaining shallow friendships? First, they cultivate depth over breadth. Instead of having 20 friends they see occasionally, they have 2 or 3 people they can actually talk to. Quality connections that don't require performance. Relationships where intellectual honesty is valued over social comfort. Schopenhauer wrote, "We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people." Intelligent people refuse to forfeit themselves. They'd rather have 1 friend who knows them completely than 100 who know a performed version. They understand that authentic connection is rare, and they don't dilute their energy trying to manufacture it where it doesn't exist. Second, they build rich inner lives. They read extensively, they think deeply, they develop interests and expertise that don't require other people's participation or validation. Their intellectual and creative pursuits provide the stimulation that others seek from socializing. Third, they learn to distinguish between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is wanting connection you don't have. Solitude is choosing to be alone because it's better than the alternative. Intelligent people experience plenty of solitude and very little loneliness, while most people experience constant company and chronic loneliness. Fourth, they stop apologizing for their preferences. They don't feel guilty for declining invitations. They don't pretend to be more social than they are. They don't force themselves into friendships that drain them just to appear normal. Fifth, they use technology selectively. They maintain contact with the rare few people worth maintaining contact with, but they don't mistake social media connections for actual friendship. They recognize that most online interaction is performance amplified, not genuine connection. What you're doing isn't wrong. Choosing books over parties isn't dysfunction. Preferring a quiet evening alone to forced socializing isn't a character flaw. You're simply refusing to participate in a social game that offers you nothing of value. And that's not antisocial, that's intelligent.
Let's be practical. You wake up tomorrow. You still live in a world that expects you to be social. You still encounter people who think you need to get out more. You still feel occasional pressure to have more friends, to be more normal, to participate more. What actually changes? First, you stop feeling guilty. The guilt you feel about preferring solitude, it's manufactured. It's social programming telling you that something is wrong with you for not needing what others need. But there's nothing wrong with you. You're wired differently. Wired for depth instead of breadth, for substance instead of socializing. Schopenhauer observed, "A happy life is impossible. The best that a man can attain is a heroic life." Your heroic life isn't about forcing yourself to be someone you're not. It's about accepting what you are and building a life that honors that reality. If that means fewer friends, so be it. If it means more solitude, embrace it. If it means you're different from most people, good. Most people are mediocre. Second, you set boundaries without apology. When people invite you to things that will drain you, you decline. You don't make elaborate excuses. You don't pretend to be busy. You simply say no, because your time and energy belong to you, not to social expectations. Third, you invest in the rare connections that actually matter. Those one or two people who don't require you to perform. Cultivate those relationships, not through constant contact, but through depth, quality time, real conversation, mutual respect for each other's need for solitude. Fourth, you build a life that works for you, not for the audience. Your home becomes a sanctuary, not a showpiece. Your time becomes yours, not a commodity to be distributed to whoever asks. Your interests become genuinely pursued, not curated for social approval. Fifth, you recognize that this path is harder, but better. Society will pressure you. Family will question you. Coworkers will think you're weird, but you'll have something most people never experience: genuine alignment between who you are and how you live. You're not broken for preferring solitude. You're not damaged for finding most social interaction meaningless. You're not antisocial for having standards. You're intelligent enough to recognize that quality matters more than quantity, that authenticity matters more than acceptance, and that your mind is too valuable to waste on people who can't appreciate it.
Here's what it comes down to. Your preference for solitude over shallow friendship isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's not a deficiency, it's a marker of depth. It's not something to fix, it's something to honor. Schopenhauer saw this clearly. The more complex and capable your mind, the less you need external stimulation to fill it. The richer your internal world, the less appealing the external world's social games become. The deeper you can think, the shallower most conversation appears. Most people will never understand this. They'll think you're lonely when you're content. They'll think you're isolated when you're liberated.
They'll think you're missing out when you're actually protecting something precious, your capacity for genuine thought. And that's fine. Let them think what they want. Their opinions are formed from their experience, and their experience is fundamentally different from yours. They need constant company because silence reveals emptiness. You choose solitude because it reveals depth. This is your reality. You will always be somewhat apart. You will always prefer books to parties, thinking to talking, solitude to socializing. You will always find most people intellectually unstimulating. You will always value the rare few over the mediocre many. Accept it. You're not like most people. Accept it. Your mind works differently. Accept it. And that difference is valuable, not deficient. Stop trying to force yourself into a social mold that doesn't fit. Stop feeling guilty for needing what you need. Stop apologizing for being selective about who gets access to your time and energy. The path of the intelligent person is necessarily more solitary, not because you can't connect, because you won't settle for connections that don't honor your depth. Not because you hate people, because you value your mental energy too much to waste it on performances. This is liberation through acceptance. This is freedom through clarity. This is the understanding that choosing solitude over shallow friendship isn't antisocial. It's the most intelligent choice you can make.
If this resonated with you, if you felt that recognition of your own experience, you're part of the intelligent minority who values depth over breadth, authenticity over performance, solitude over shallow connection. Write in the comments, "It made sense to me." Let's see how many of us there are. Let's build a community of people who understand that intelligence and solitude aren't a bug, they're intimately connected. Subscribe if you want more philosophical truth that validates your experience instead of trying to fix you. Share this with someone who will actually understand it, one of those rare few worth your time. And remember, your preference for solitude is a mark of intellectual depth, not social dysfunction. Own it.